There's a certain visceral reaction, isn't there, when you see the environment just change instantly.
It hits you differently.
And that's exactly where today's deep dive takes us. We're looking at a story you shared from YouTube, Eco Nightmares. The title is pretty stark. A nightmare that isn't just a story. It's real.
That's the one. It's compelling stuff.
It starts with this really potent image. A trench being dug near a spring and the water immediately turning. It went from clear to this.
Yeah.
Cloudy, thick, brown sludge.
Right. And what makes it even more resonant is that the local elders, they had specifically warned against disturbing that spring. It was near a stone circle.
Exactly. The storyteller, Mateo, he was working for a development company. This was in Nova Scotia near a Micmac reserve.
And they had a guide, Madeline, an elder. She explicitly told them, respect the spring near the stones. She said it holds memory.
Holds memory and is not for taking. Powerful words.
Yeah, she stressed it gives life, but only if you treat it right, with respect.
And initially, the company seemed to get it. Their plan wasn't to touch the spring at all.
That was the initial understanding, yes. Peaceful land, quiet project, respect the designated areas. Seems straightforward.
But, well, things rarely stay straightforward in these stories, do they?
Yeah.
The turning point came with the engineers.
Ah, the engineers. They saw the spring and thought, efficiency.
Right. They decided to reroute some of the water system through the sacred spring for, quote, better drainage.
And the moment they did that, the story says, things changed. Immediately.
Yeah, like the birds just scattered, frogs vanished. Even the wind, it says, stopped, which sounds eerie.
Definitely eerie. Initially dismissed as just, spooky coincidences, maybe.
Probably. But it was more than just spooky feelings. The ecosystem reacted. And for our listeners, it's a stark example, isn't it? How quickly things can unravel.
It really is. And it didn't stop with the environment. It started affecting the people on site.
Mm-hmm. Headaches first, then dizziness. Skin rashes started appearing, swelling.
And there was that one worker who actually collapsed after drinking water from the site.
Which is terrifying. And then, adding to the mystery, they tested the water, sent samples to a lab.
Right.
Nothing conclusive. The results basically said, yeah, something's in there, but we can't identify it.
So conventional science hit a wall, which is a fascinating point in itself. Our tools don't always catch everything, do they?
No. There might be more going on than standard tests can measure.
Yeah.
Maybe something related to what Madeline called memory.
It makes you wonder. Yet, despite the weird environmental signs, the illnesses, the inconclusive tests, they kept working.
Right. Well, Mateo's pretty blunt about it. The money was too good.
That classic conflict, economic drivers versus, pretty blatant warning signs from the environment and the people working in it.
And the warnings just got more intense, more graphic even.
You mean the dead animals?
Yeah. Fish turning up with translucent eyes, birds missing feathers, and then the deer.
Right, the deer found right at the edge of the site.
Yeah.
But it was intact. Yeah.
Exactly. Intact. Mateo described it as feeling symbolic, like a message. Not just random death, but something deliberate.
That detail, the intactness, it does feel significant. It suggests something beyond just poison or contamination, doesn't it? Almost ritualistic.
It feels heavier, yeah. And then Mateo himself has this experience, this dream.
The one about the spring.
Mm-hmm. He dreams the spring is glowing under the moonlight, pulsing. And there's a woman there. White clothes, black eyes, soaking wet hair.
Chilling imagery.
And she whispers to him,
"You took what was not yours."
Wow. Okay. That's direct.
But it doesn't end when he wakes up. He wakes up gasping for air, feeling like his lungs are full of water.
Seriously?
Yeah. And his bed is completely drenched. But the window is closed. No leaks. No explanation.
Okay, that's terrifying. That's moving beyond psychological into something physical.
It's the thing that finally pushes him to go back and talk to Madeline. Properly talk to her.
And what did she say? Did she have an explanation for all this? She did. Rooted in, her traditional understanding. She told him flat out, you broke the pact.
The pact, the understanding of respect they were warned about.
Exactly. She said the spring, which was sacred, a source of healing even, was now poisoned. Not just physically, but spiritually, maybe. And it was responding.
Responding, not just passively contaminated, but actively reacting. That's a very different worldview than the engineers had.
Completely different. It sees the environment as having agency, as being interconnected in ways we might not easily grasp.
So what was the solution? Did Madeline offer any way to fix it?
Her advice was incredibly direct. 3 things. Return the water, Repair what you broke and listen this time.
Return, repair, listen. Simple but profound. Accountability, restoration, and humility.
It carries a lot of weight. And, well, the project did stop. The company called it a pause.
But the implication is that it was more than just a pause, right? The site was abandoned.
Yeah. And Mateo describes going back one last time. The trench they dug, it had naturally refilled itself.
Nature reclaiming the space.
And the spring was flowing again, but differently. He said when he leaned close, it felt like the water whispered his name.
That gives me chills. It really underscores the idea of the place having its own life, its own memory.
This whole thing, obviously, it changed Mateo profoundly. He left that kind of development work.
I can imagine. What does he do now?
Now he works with local communities, learning from them, trying to protect these kinds of irreplaceable resources. His whole approach is different, asking first, listening.
That's a significant shift, from facilitating the disruption to actively working on protection and collaboration.
And his big takeaway, the core message he carries from it all, is powerful. Some water gives life, and some remembers what you did.
Remembers what you did. That resonates long after the story ends. It speaks to consequences, to the land holding on to the impacts of our actions.
So, thinking about the bigger picture, the lessons for environment and sustainability,
Yeah.
what stands out to you?
Well, first, the immense value and the potential danger of disregarding traditional ecological knowledge. Madeline knew. The warnings were there.
Yeah, that knowledge comes from generations of observation, of relationship with the land. It's a different kind of data, maybe, but it's data nonetheless.
Exactly. And ignoring it, as the engineers did for their better drainage, had catastrophic results. It points to needing a more holistic approach, doesn't it? Integrating that deep, place-based knowledge with scientific understanding.
Right. Not seeing them as opposing forces, but as complementary ways of knowing. Science can tell us the what sometimes, but traditional knowledge often holds the why and the how to relate.
And it highlights the interconnectedness. Messing with the spring didn't just affect the water, it affected the birds, the frogs, the wind, the workers, the animals. Everything is linked. Sustainability has to recognize that deep interconnectedness.
So, for someone listening to this feeling maybe a bit unsettled by Mateo's story,
Right.
what can they take away? What can they do?
Well, on a basic level, it's about awareness. Being mindful of development projects in our own areas, asking questions. Whose land is it? What are the ecological impacts? Is local or indigenous knowledge being considered?
So getting informed and engaged locally.
Yes, and actively seeking out and respecting that local and indigenous wisdom where it exists. Supporting indigenous-led conservation efforts, for instance.
And maybe even reflecting on our own relationship with the environment. Like, how do we interact with our local water sources, our local natural spaces?
Precisely. Do we see it just as a resource to be used, or as something more, something that requires respect, maybe even reciprocity? Mateo's story pushes us towards that deeper relationship.
It really does. It moves beyond just environmental management to something more like environmental responsibility, grounded in respect.
Yeah, this eco-nightmare, like others you find, it isn't just meant to scare, it's meant to make us think, to reconsider.
To remember that our actions ripple outwards, sometimes in ways science hasn't cataloged yet, that the water might, in its own way, remember.
Exactly. Nature isn't passive, it responds. That's a crucial takeaway.
These stories, these deep dives into experiences like Mateo's, they certainly give you a lot to mull over. Potent reminders.
They absolutely do. They challenge us to be better stewards, better listeners.
Stay safe, stay aware, and I'll see you in the next nightmare.